everyone, and welcome to the Scratticus Academy. We are back with some more Dunera today. I'm going to quickly shout about some things, and then we'll hop around and say hello. First of all, please check out the links that are coming up in chat now. It includes YouTube. If you haven't seen all of the other episodes yet, or you just want to rewatch them, we do have playlists over on YouTube. Also, Twitter, if you want to get into a game, go drop Scrat a DM. And our Discord, we have a channel purely for Dunera, so if you want to go check that out, please go and check that out. Otherwise, a huge thank you to our wonderful sponsors in the form of Hero Forge. You will have seen some of our characters done as minis in the load up screen. It's really good fun. Again, may take a while because you get sucked into it in a good way, but please go check them out. Also, Mage Hand Press. I always yell about Mage Hand Press because I love dark matter. You can now get the hardback book, which is now available. It's basically D&D in space. And also the Deck of Many that created Tumblewood, and also these awesome magic moving, which I've covered, the one magic moving spell cards, which are really, really awesome. And they are part of our new donation tier, where they're effectively like a deck of tarot cards, and they all have meanings and they can be done for select players, so please check that out as well. Otherwise, let's hop
also sign up for Alice's Patreon.
Oh yeah. I'm awful at that, I really am. Thank you, Mel. So let's hop around and say hi to everyone, and we'll start as we always do with the lovely Jagon's Gold. Oh hi.
Oh, hi everyone. I hope you are all thriving tonight. I know I am. I am Jay, or Jagon's Gold, and I will be playing Paula Packer, the dancer librarian of our party, and I'm super excited for tonight.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we're going to hop down to the very lovely Talk School. Oh, hi.
Hi, it's good to be back. Sorry I missed you all last week, but I had folks and stuff and people in town and had lots of fun, but I missed my Dunera family. I can't wait to be back. I play Tolan Falk, who apparently is unconscious after his crazy shenanigans with, things like the season tree that have been a fixture in his life suddenly, being Aliced. So I can't wait, and I'm looking forward to it. So let's get going and get on Alice's Patreon.
Thank you. Okay, then we're gonna hop over and say hello to the very lovely Mal. Oh hi.
Oh hi. I have had quite the weekend, but I'm glad to be here because I really need it. I love my Dunera fam. I play Reese Blackash, who's full of secrets and probably sadness. Seems on brand for me.
Oh man. Okay, awesome, thank you. And then last but certainly not least, Sarah. Oh hi.
My name is Sarah. I'm this on the internet, and I'm so excited to be back to play this game. I play Florence Fetlock, a courier for the city of Karnan, and we recently learned she has spooky magic eyes that allow her to see different, let's say, levels of existence.
Huzzah. Okay, wonderful. Now we will start off with Tolan, considering he's been asleep for the last as we remember last week, those as Paula managed to get as everyone managed to get Tolan to the dance studio, along with so many of the other survivors of this sort of devastating thing that happened to the season tree. Tolan's eyes sort of fluttered and darted about as he was out, almost as if he was having a dream or something. He couldn't be roused. And Tolan, one of the last things you remember is when the wave from the season tree hit. You felt like your stomach lurch, your ears were ringing as if there had been like an explosion, and you weren't deaf. Everything sounded like it was very foggy and muted. You hurt. You feel like you can feel every single cobblestone beneath you. It's cold. You can feel it on your hands, on your back, all the way sort of down your legs and your head. And you remember the last look of the Guardians that they gave you. as you saw fear in their eyes just before that breeze effectively took them away, as they seemed to dissolve into ash and disappear into nowhere. You've got a bit of a headache. You think you're pretty sure you hit something pretty hard, and you remember yourself falling almost in slow motion as you hit the ground twice. And there was a foggy moment where you almost blacked out, but you held on to consciousness. After what seems like far too long, you can feel yourself gain, I guess, a bit more clarity of your surroundings. And you're still lying down. You feel like you've been holding your breath for a very long time, almost like you've been underwater. And you wake up looking up at the sky. But the sky is not dark, not black, dull. As much as it seems to be full and swirling with color, very much like the oil slick, it's dull. It does move, almost as if there was, when a breeze moves clouds across the sky, it's like it's moving the color across the sky. And the air feels thick, so when you first sort of come around, as much as you feel like you're taking your first sort of gasp of air in so long, it feels thick and it feels heavy.
Think, it takes that deep first breath, looking at the sky. I'm sort of lying prone, looking straight up at the sky?
Yeah, you've literally come around whilst looking up.
That was stupid, Tolan. Ugh. I'm too old for this shit. Oh. And he sort of looks to either side I think probably his first place that he looks for is to see, knowing that Reese was all but right beside him, trying to look to see if Reese is okay, if they were blown in the same direction. I mean, I guess when he was thrown backward, he kind of saw, probably out of his peripheral vision, a shadow, but doesn't, so sort of probably, I guess, looks to his left if he was on the right to try to find Reese, knowing that the canals are close by, that he might not be drowning or something. So he can at least yell for help. He's probably not in a lot of condition to do something himself, but just kind of is trying to gather himself. I think almost out of habit, after he sort of rubs the back of his head, I think he starts patting down his pockets, like he does before he leaves the house every time, to sort of see that sort of old man check of what is, where's his hat, are his pockets, does he still have the things that were in his pockets, etc. Compass.
You seem to have everything on you. You definitely feel that compass sort of in your pocket. You're even still gripping hold of that almost like taser type instrument. But as you look over to the left, there's no Reese. There's no one. This is like an open square of cobblestones. And there are no buildings. There are just stone archways everywhere.
The season tree wasn't in a cobblestone square, was it? I mean, it's more of like paved or like concrete, and the canals. Do I see canals? Do I see anything resembling Carnan?
Thank you for the sub, Mel. There is no canals, no waterways, no buildings, nothing. The one thing I will say is that you sort of look, as you're almost pushing yourself up a little bit, you look at your hands and you look at the cobbles beneath it, and they're very almost roundish stones, like they've been worn and walked upon hundreds, if not thousands of times. And the color around them is kind of distorted. You know, when you look through 3D glasses and you can see the color separation from it, it's almost like that.
Sort of saying to himself into the air, I don't think we're incarnate anymore. And I think, I mean, is this like acres of open space? I mean, is it like an open field, like to the horizon is just cobblestones, or is there something that interrupts my sight, or is it pretty much just stones?
This is almost like an old cobblestone street, like it's got the layout, but it's as far as the eye can see. And there are stone archways, stone empty archways everywhere. The only thing I will say is maybe about 10-15 feet in front of you, where you can guess you were thrown from, where the season tree was. You can see one of these archways cracked and broken with these, what looks to be like maybe vines or branches had wound around this archway and now smoking. They're not burning, but they're withering at the same time, almost like when the blight happened.
As Tolan, his head clears, sort of those cobwebs, and after taking a hit on the head and catching his breath, sort of looks to that spot and puts two and two together. I think then takes a quick look around for something that would have had hands as big as he saw trying to push through, if just in case.
You can't, there's nothing there that has those, but again, on this one where you know the season tree was, are these huge indents, and
Right.
you can see where part of the archway at the top is definitely broken off and fallen away.
So Tolan will sort of, are any of the other arches broken here?
You can see a fair few are broken.
Okay.
Some of them, all sorts of different, all of them, where the one with the, where the season tree was had vines wrapped around it, you can see other, almost like something that makes them a little bit unique.
Okay.
Lots of different things, whether it's symbols or anything like that. There is one in particular that you can see has these huge swirl-like patterns almost carved into them, and the whole top of the archway. You can see the stone is still there where it's collapsed. It's resting down by the bottom of the archway. It's gone.
Okay. Tolan sort of gets his bearings, and mainly just he was looking around to see if making sure he could find his way back, making sure if these were all identical or if what differences were. So just sort of takes a note of kind of exactly where he landed next to it. I think he probably even takes out his little tinkerer's notepad and maybe takes a few notes about the one that he sees the swirled patterns, and probably writes down season tree. And seeing as those vines are sort of disintegrating, he's going to take any other notes to try to make sure that he can identify what he believes the season tree's arch, and starts, as he always does, just talking to himself. Well, at least whatever was connected to those hands isn't from here, or hopefully in here, or this is a here or an in-between. Sort of probably grinds his teeth a little bit, and then after taking his notes about where he was, cautiously, but not, not inching his way, but walks towards the one where the season tree was, just even feel the cobblestones. Are they warm? Are they cold? He's in sort of in seeker and inventor mode, trying to just gather what information he can about the phenomenon. He actually also will look down at his disruptor to see if it seems to be fully discharged.
It does seem to be fully discharged. Like it's not broken, but the impact has definitely done something to it. And you sort of reach out and you touch this stone archway. And it's strange because underneath your hands you feel very hot. It's not hot enough for you to jump back, but it feels hot, and it feels like bark. Looks like stone. Looks like it has been carved by hand by someone, but it feels like hot, burning wood.
That's interesting. But seeing as it was through the season tree, it does make some sense. Is the season tree arch like the other one, like you said, sort of like the top fell down? I'm sort of thinking of the other one with the swirls, sort of more hinge like,
Yeah, they're all very they're all very similar. They're all very much almost like not a pointed top, but a roundish kind
sort
of
cathedral
top.
top.
Yeah, like some of them. In fact, you've probably seen this sort of shape in the church.
Gotcha.
In the archways, and each one's very telling. They look old, is the only way I can describe it. It's not architecture. You feel like maybe the church copied the architecture, not the other way round.
Right.
And the season tree one, you can see a massive chunk out the top, and you can see where somewhere at the bottom where these fingerprints have ripped through, it's just crushed, and you're pretty sure if you push part of it, it would go over.
Right. Well, to no one in particular, I guess we're looking for another way home. Make sure it bites his lip. Think, Tolan, think. It's just another problem to be solved. Well, data. First thing, we need data. So, he looks around him, sort of eyes where the swirled one was, and sort of looks for the next. He's seeing if there's any sort of pattern, or if they just seem to be sort of random in their placement. I mean, is it an array that the season tree one was a part of? Is the season tree seem to be a center point, or is it just a random scattering of these? Are they all facing one direction? Are they all the arches lined up, or some? Are they?
Like, some of them are all pointing different directions. They seem to almost be like a muddle.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a fairly decent distance away from each of them, so they're not crammed together. They're not crammed together. And all of them look unique. They all have different patterns. They all have something else on them. Also, you can walk through them completely to the other side. So there's no real front and back, but you can guess maybe there was at some point.
Right. So I guess the next thing he would do is he'd start looking for any markings from some of the older ruins that he had explored as a seeker, to see if any of those are familiar. I have research. I don't know if this would count if he takes some time with this, or if it's he's or whatever you need me to do. But his next thing is okay, I might not be able to get to Karnan, but can I get somewhere close?
Okay, could you roll me an intellect check, please? And if you're using focus, I will say that will help in more.
Okay, so I will use research. which would be an asset. He is really low on effort right now. His intellect pool is because he had to use a lot of it to do his disruptor. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm also, well, I love all the advantages people have given me. I don't think he's in a place to actually be at advantage doing this. So I'm just going to go with the one research asset on this one. Ooh, one away from me.
Okay. Wow. Okay. You wander almost like through this forest of archways for a long time. And after a while, it's like, if you know when you've been staring at something for too long, you're like, is that the same one? No, that's not the same one. As you sort of check and double check.
He would be taking notes.
I was going to say, you can sort of, they look very similar, but with your notes, you're like, no, I've seen this one. And you wander for quite a while amongst all of these. You can take notes on every single one. You can even sketch them out or whatever it is that Tolan does. One of them you come across, it doesn't remind you of anywhere. It doesn't look like somewhere you've ever been before. But this doorway is not bigger, but I would say more ornate. Everything is intricately carved. You can see mountains, you can see flora, fauna, and the one thing that stands out to you, this one isn't broken. And on the tops of the two pillars before the archway sort of meets, you see carved in, as if they're looking at each other, two magpies. And beneath them, two crossed swords.
Just a quick clarification. Is this the only unbroken one? Have all the other ones been broken, or just some of the ones?
Only some of them have. There's actually a lot that are very, very intact. Some of them you could swear they were carved the day before.
Okay. So yeah, Tolan, I think his notes sort of look like if you've ever looked at a textbook like describing the arches in a church, how they sort of have that, sort of just the one side of it, since I assume most of them are symmetrical. Or if they're not, he'll have like a little note that of what he's got is left and right. And as he comes to this big one, I'm trying to recall, doesn't Elizabeth have a magpie? And did Tolan see it? That's what I'm trying to remember.
Tolan saw the magpie. Tolan did see the magpie. And Reese, did you show your coins, Tolan?
I don't believe so.
No.
But is that the cross swords? I'm trying to look back at my notes on the
cross swords is not something you've seen before.
Okay, so it's not the company's.
No, it's not the company's seal. Logo.
Okay, sorry. So I think at this point, especially with that roll, having found nothing else familiar, I think he will sort of fixate on these magpies in this larger one. Well, I've been harping to all these youngsters that stories and coincidences have meaning. And here I am, having just seen a magpie this morning. And now here's one here. So, little birdie, what do you have to tell me? I think then he'll start to really look and examine closely anything, knowing, I think he's smart enough to realize, these are doors. Not just the name of the campaign, but to see if there's some way to activate it. I will say there is a sinking feeling in the pit of his gut that it probably takes magic, and that I think he's fending off, Tolan slips into these sort of dark spaces. And I think there's a part of him trying to really fight to hold on to probably one of his last spoons to not slip into despair that all the things that have led up to this suddenly are going to leave him trapped in this place because he doesn't have magic.
You stare at this doorway for so long. And again, you take every sketch, you take down every detail. And the self seems to be almost a symbol, but with the crossed swords as well. And there's something at the back of your head where you swear you've seen this in a book somewhere, but this was like at school and a passing thing, not like a focus.
Yeah, Tolan didn't pay much attention.
And you're standing there for a long time until somewhere you can hear something you do recognize. A very low song. That deep sort of hum, that very monotone song. And from around some of the doorways, you hear that clacking of seashells, the movement of driftwood. And it's strange. They sort of... You see some of these guardians with these tall antlers. Some of them taller than the doorways, some of them shorter than the doorways. And they almost emerge from them. There doesn't seem to be more than one by each doorway. And could you roll me another intellect check, please?
I think as he was slowly starting to give in to despair, and then heard that song. It's funny, he doesn't think of the Guardians as, even though he associates these noises with them, he thinks of Aggie. He thinks of the night in the alley. And he sort of says to himself, now's not the time to give up. Aggie, you always told me that. I'm not sure if you could find me here, but this daft old man needs a little help getting home. I need to make sure you're all right. And the kids. They're the adults now, I guess. And he begins to hum along a little bit.
You hum along with them, and it's a song you've hummed before. And
Summons a dragon.
Sorry, suddenly, yeah. You can feel it like in your stomach and in your chest, like it's vibrating through you. And it's almost as if you all start to share the same voice. You're not separately singing from them for a moment. And then it breaks away again, and you can definitely feel the difference between you and them. But as you do, you see these tall figures, they don't fade, but they almost become see-through. And within them are other people singing along with you. Human. Not necessarily looking directly at you, but they're looking to each other as they sing this tune.
think Tolan continues to hum, but even though he's feeling him separate from them, and sort of these two large figures, 8-10 feet tall, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I think he starts to walk towards them, knowing, even though they've become somewhat translucent, that when he was at the season tree the first time, they took his hand and guided him to a different place. And so I think begins to walk forward. And I think as he hums, he sort of adds in the words again. I only want to learn and to get home.
There is one of these guardians, as you say, that takes a step forward. And you look up at this huge mask which sits way above their sort of human body. And you look, and it's that moment, it's the one from before. The same one, the one that originally had fear in its eyes at the moment of the season tree breaking. And it takes a step forward, and almost in this like shroud, you see this fairly young man, maybe 30 or so, and the only way to describe him is plain. Sort of soft brown hair, a soft smile, a sort of square face, rigid jaw, and he reaches out and holds out his hand, both human and the Guardian's one sort of goes with it, almost like he's wearing it like a shield or armor. And he reaches out to you.
Do I recognize this?
Not this one.
He Tolan reaches out his hand as well. I think he sort of steels himself for a second, and before he takes his hand, sort of again pats his pockets, keys, glasses, compass, capacitors, tools. And he hesitates for a moment, but just a moment. It's time for, hopefully, this daft old man to go home. Or at least not be stuck here. Reaches out and takes his hand.
You feel the hand close over yours. It's a firm hand grip, but there's no tension there. You think you could take your hand away with ease. And as this happens, you see his eyes change color. Sort of a very bright purple. And you hear a voice, as if he's talking to you, but his lips don't move. You've only ever really seen this with the seers. But this is very different. You get the sense that this is different. Welcome, Tolan Folk. You seem to have found your way into the in-between when you shouldn't have. I will correct this.
It was not an intentional intrusion. There was something trying to break through the season tree into Kanan.
He nods slowly.
This guardian I recognize. they were there. And
It is me.
you seemed afraid.
Weren't you?
Terrified, actually. Terrified enough to do something not well thought out. That's not usually my nature. But it seemed prudent at the time.
And that grip doesn't change. He doesn't seem to lead you anywhere. He looks you directly in the eyes. And the irony is that in human form, he's looking up to you. And as much as this is a young man in front of you, you feel very old eyes, very wise eyes looking back at you. And he tips his head to the side, and you hear that clang and that sort of that rattle as the top of the Guardian's head turns as well, and those seashells sort of pour over to one side. There are very few of you left.
Incarnate?
For a moment, he tenses his eyebrows in confusion.
Was I the only one to survive?
No, your friends are fine. You worry that you no longer have your magic, as they call it.
Toland kind of just, I watch too much Witcher, gives sort of just kind of a Witcher grunt and just it was the price I was willing to pay.
I can't give it back.
When that decision was made, I knew it was not something that could easily or ever potentially be corrected, but it is, I would not have it any other way, other than for it never to have happened at all.
And again, there's almost a very, it is an agreeing nod, but there's no real expression on this man's face. You are one of the few left that has a talent that may have died out. The last one we knew of died years ago.
A shaper?
No.
A singer?
You're one of the last singers in this world. Before they were wiped out.
Wiped out?
And again, he sort of nods, eyes close, which probably indicates the most emotion from him. As you can see, they're very sadly closed.
I had not come across anyone else who was able to sing the Inokwe as I did. I tried to teach my pupil Averick, my apprentice, my friend. He had some talent for it, but it never came to him naturally.
You will never learn as you learn. It is good that no singer is close to one another. They're easier found that way.
I'll remember that if I come across another. There is an interesting development in Karnan, in my world, as he sort of looks around, trying to describe Karnan compared to this place. I mention it because it seemed to sing, they seem to sing as well. We apparently have a dragon on our hands. Is it a part of all these things that have been happening in Karnan? It all seems to coincide with each other. Our sky turning similar to yours. The sphere, I guess I should say egg now, was also similarly marked. And the Valadrins said that they were experiencing something similar over their city as well.
Tolan, do you believe in coincidences?
I certainly tell most anyone who will listen, really, that there are no such things. That whether it be a story or a feeling or just a bit of deja vu, that's when you need to pay attention. That's when you need to listen to what the heartbeat of the world is trying to tell you. Because magic doesn't necessarily speak a language we can understand, but it certainly is something we're able to feel if we open ourselves up to it.
And again, there's that slow nod. And he holds your hand a little bit tighter. Keep singing, but don't let people know.
I will.
It is rare and it needs to survive.
I'm sure wherever our path leads us, there will be more Anokwe that need guidance to find their way home, especially with the season tree gone now.
And then you do see a smile. It's not just the Anokwe. And you feel your hand, it's almost like it hurts now, actually, as he grips it. And you get that strong notion again as you feel wobbly, you feel faint, you can feel darkness coming over your eyes. And suddenly you are very aware of every single ache in your body, every single one. You can feel the pain in your back, in your arms, all of it, as you almost completely fall back and pass out. And we are going to hop over to Paula. And Paula, you have been in your dance studio now. It's been hours. It's early hours of the morning, and it is full of people. But there are so many people asleep. There's people that are just tired, and you can see Jin dozing off, like in the corner. She's got her medical like bags all around her, like all under one arm as she's like clinging to them. You can see she's sleeping very lightly. You can see Tuva asleep on her lap, like leaning up against her chest, and they've both got like their heads back and they are out. Jin's other arm very tightly around Tuva, almost as if she'd run off again or something would happen. You can see Elizabeth propped up against the wall. She's sort of not asleep, but very much in herself. You can see her once white coat is now stained with blood all down the shoulder and across the arm. And what would you be doing there? Would you be trying to get some sleep, or?
At this early hour, Paula probably had stayed up trying to clean up, because the place was already such a disaster, and with all these people here, she definitely like made a priority to like try to like tidy up while everyone was starting to get some rest. But I think Paula's probably pretty wired from all the Paula's probably pretty wired from all the adrenaline of that day. And Paula takes a second to look at Jin and Tuva, and when she sees Jin and Tuva, she thinks about her and her mom, Paula, and her mother, and she's she looks at Jin and imagines and speculates what her relationship with Amma might have been like back in the day, and part of her has that curiosity reawoken and wants to call her mom and let her know that not only is she safe, but apologize for fighting and walking out and all of that. But Paula takes a deep breath and reels her thoughts back in and remembers that distance is really in what she needs right now. But and she also definitely like keeps an eye on that bag, and like kind of like squints at it, just apprehensively, just to make sure that like the dragon's still in there, and that
every now and then you do see that little tongue that you hate so much sort of come out, taste the air, and disappear again.
And Paula cringes and but she'd also check on Matthias, make sure Matthias is doing okay.
First of all, thank you, Holly, to that sub. Thank you so much. You can look over into the corner, and almost actually making his way over to you, you can see that he was just in his shirt before, which was pretty fried from the back. Someone's given him like a blanket. You can tell it's probably been forced on him by Jin. He's sort of holding it with two hands as he's sort of making his way over towards you. We'll say like it's like 2 a.m. at this time, and he sort of comes over and crouches down by you. You know you should be asleep.
I know. Today was just really wild, and I just have all that adrenaline still flowing through me, you know. I guess just I never expected to see this many people in my dance studio, and I guess I'm getting a little excited.
What?
I mean, this is kind of good press, right?
I'd say it's very good press. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think you should hand out leaflets as they leave at the end of it, but wouldn't hurt.
It's true. I mean, I could offer like some aerobics or yoga classes for people that were injured at a discounted price.
You don't. My mom loves yoga. Don't tell her.
She'd be welcome. What's with you and your mom? You seem to be.
Oh, I get on with my mom great. I'm just very aware that she is a very intense human being.
Well, she made me feel right at home when I was feeling really nervous and insecure. So I appreciated that.
You see him always like physically look relieved, like if he was worried she'd like put you off or something like that. And he's like, Dolan has been out now for hours.
I look towards Talon to see if his eyes are still flickering like crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I could dump a bucket of water on him or something, but I don't know what's going to wake him up right now.
I'm really nervous for him. I'm surprised that Jin didn't have an answer. Jin always has the answers.
She says it's the best she can think of is that it's a fever and she's given him stuff for it. And Astrid walked past earlier and licked his face and he didn't even move, so...
Listen, I didn't go to med school or anything, but this just doesn't seem like a fever to me.
He looks over. It's not. Don't bite my feet. No. Okay.
Oh no. That Hildy.
We just appreciate that was still in Matthias.
Oh yeah, you still said that.
And Matthias just like looked over to him. He's like, I don't know what it is. I heard him talking a little bit earlier, but not much. Something about making notes. Does he do that in general?
He's literally always talking about making notes. This is nothing new.
Yeah. Maybe he must be fine then. Wherever he is, he's obviously happy doing what he loves best.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope he comes back soon. But you, mister,
What?
are injured.
I'm not that injured.
You're injured. And I left you, and I'm really sorry about that. I left you.
And he sort of pauses for a moment and straightens up. I'm okay. See, I have a blanket.
No,
Blanket means I'm on the mend.
All right. I'm glad you're feeling okay, but you need to sleep. And I want to check in on Elizabeth over there because she seems kind of lonely.
Yeah, it's, I guess, lonely, calculated if you ask me, but then she looks like she's always doing something.
Yeah, she definitely knows something about what happened today. I don't want to lay the pressure on her right now, but you know I'm going to find out what she knows.
I know. And he sort of like stands up, like you can hear like that, ow, as he sort of like pushes up on his knees. He's like, I'm going to go sleep. But if I wake up in an hour and you are not, I don't know what I'm going to do, but you should be asleep by then.
We'll see. Depends on how this conversation goes.
Okay. Don't start any fights whilst I'm gone. And he sort of smiles cheekily and starts to walk over back to the same space. You see him sit by Jin and Tuva, as Tuva's hand has sort of like fallen to the side. And every now and then you see her fingers sort of move as this little tongue comes out of the bag very quickly and sort of tickles her palm.
Ala smiles at Matthias as he walks away and lets out a sigh of relief that he's not upset about the fact that she left him by the season tree earlier that day in all the commotion. Because that was definitely weighing on Paula's mind throughout the course of the day, like thinking like, okay, I'm gonna have to address this at some point, and like, but and giving her mild anxiety. But now she's good, and she's heading over to maybe get some answers from Lisbeth.
Okay. Florence and Reese, whereabouts are you in this room? Are you both getting some sleep, or are you just as wired as Paula?
I think Florence, somewhere a couple hours ago, found her way to a wall. A blanket was probably slipped over her by some kind stranger. And she's been half debating, do I walk home, even though I live slightly too far to walk, or do I just sleep here for the night? And so she's, I think, in that twilight space in between being dead tired and asleep and being a little bit cognizant of what's going on. So it's not a good rest, but she's kind of resting.
Sort of propped up, eyes, like you when you're very aware that you're awake and you're trying to force it.
Right, like imagine her like head uncomfortably cocked to the side, eyes half open, blanket kind of pulled up, and snoring something awful.
And what about Reese? Whereabouts is Reese?
I think Reese is closer to the windows. I think he's laying down with Astrid trying to sleep, but it's probably also giving him trouble.
Okay. Florence, you're tossing and you're turning. You've got that. There's an awkward, like, something in the back of the wall, which is sort of like just in between your shoulder blades, which, even though you're keeping your eyes closed, you're sort of moving them and turning them. And the other thing that might be keeping you awake is that you hear all of those whispers again. But they're different this time. They sound maybe more confused than anything. You can hear a lot of questions of, where are they? What happened? Just more questions of confusion rather than anything else. And you've got your little Inarque, the wings are flapping like crazy, not just because you're moving about a lot and you're pretty sure he's trying to settle, but he's picking up on these voices too.
So I think at first Florence tries to kind of push them aside, and I think part of why she's so dog tired is hearing these voices wears on her, not just from a magical perspective, but also emotionally and physically. Like it weighs on her. The more she hears them cry out for help, cry out for loved ones, ask, why am I here? What's happening? And I think she was trying to get some shut-eye for a while until Biddy, it's always Biddy the bat who brings her to her senses. Biddy is kind of the best part of her and makes her better. And so she finally, I think, is woken by the flapping, and she kind of rubs at her eyes and goes, okay, yeah, no, Biddy, don't wake them up. I'm awake now, okay? I'm awake.
And
okay.
There's like a squint of the eyes towards you as he sort of tries to settle again, like ruffling up those wings to try and get them back into position.
And Florence takes a deep breath in, tries to, I think as Tolan would say, like regain some spoons, and then breathes out, and then kind of looks at Biddy, and then like kind of tries to tap into her ability to see through to this other side and opened herself up to these voices. and she just tries to consciously listen.
There is one in particular. It's definitely a woman's voice. Not one you recognize or anything like that, but sounds panicked, confused. For a moment, you think you hear a bang on the window as a hand touches it, but no one else moves. And it sort of leaves the pane of glass almost as quickly as it touched it, as you're getting a sense of panic and looking for direction. And you hear the footsteps outside of the studio sort of moving, going, I can't find it, I don't understand. Why won't the door work? And there's a moment of, you see the door handle rattle again. No one else seems to acknowledge this.
And Florence kind of waits a moment, and she finally sees that rattling, and she'll get up and move over to the door. And she's trying to move as quietly as possible so as not to disturb anyone who might actually be getting some sleep right now.
Yeah, you're like tiptoeing over people. There's quite a few people in here.
And she'll very carefully and quietly try to open the door.
You see a young woman, maybe around 21, 22 years old. Long, mousy brown, almost sandy blonde, sort of somewhere in between hair. She's in just a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and a long jacket, sort of looking up and around, almost as if she's squinting to focus on things. And she starts looking around the corner, and you know the direction she's looking. She's looking towards this, where the season tree once was. And she's sort of like, hello? Where is everyone?
And Florence, I think, will try to, as she opens the door, will try to wave at the woman and say, oh, hello, are you wanting to come inside? Oh, we should chat outside. There's people sleeping in there.
Oh, thank God, someone else. And it's and she was like, is it only us? And she sort of comes closer towards you, and you realize you've got a studio full of people, but she doesn't seem to see them.
And I think Florence has been ignoring this thing that she can do for a while, and Florence's eyes are that bright gold now, and there almost seems to be like a little bit of magical current around her as her hair statics, just a little bit. And she leans in close to the woman and says very softly, yeah, no, in a matter of speaking, yes, it's just us. Let's chat outside.
Okay, yeah, no, I can do that. I'm looking for my brother. I can't find him anywhere.
Your brother, let's start with your name. And Florence is shutting the door behind her and kind of stepping, I think maybe just out of view of the windows.
Yeah, you can move off
studio.
to the side where it's on the corner. She's like, I'm Jessica.
Jessica. And your brother's name is?
And she pauses for a moment, and you see her eyes go wide. Hello, readers. You see her eyes go wide, almost as if she's taking a second to remember. She's like, I don't know. I don't know his name. Why don't I know his name?
That's okay. It's been a long day. You were by the season tree, right?
Yeah, we went to the season tree. There was something happening, and it sounded like something was happening. So we went to have a look. We went to see what was going on. I don't remember much of what actually happened.
Can you close your eyes and think back to just a little bit ago and think what what did happen? Try to imagine those moments.
And she sort of looks confused with you for a second, and it's almost like a fine, rather than a panicked. It's like fine. There was something, like a breeze, but no, like a wind, like a really strong one. And we were both holding hands when we went there. He's much younger than me, you see. And the whatever that was, it made I let go of his hand.
You could call it a breeze, but you could also call it an explosion, a dangerous one. And it sounds like you were really close to it when it happened.
Roland. His name is Roland.
Roland, your brother's name is Roland, and your name is Jessica, and you were by the season tree when it exploded.
Yes. You don't understand. I'm trying to find my brother. And she sort of starts to move, and she's like, I think the season tree is this way, and she starts to walk in the cobbled street.
Here, why don't we go see it together?
Okay. This sounds rude. Who are you?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I usually do this earlier, but it's crazy late and I've got airport tired brain. So my name is Florence and I'm a courier. I can help you maybe not find your brother, but I can help to say whatever it is you want to say to him. Come, let's go look at the story tree. Maybe it'll help you remember.
Okay. And she starts to walk right beside you, and you can see her looking around as if she's taking in everything around her, like she's slowly remembering it, like the waterways are really sort of picking up for her, and she's looking up at all of the natural light that is around. As you round on the square, and you can see that there's a few people still there walking amongst all of those that are covered with blankets. Some are definitely look to be relatives and things like that are, it's not a happy sight. You can see what looks to be like just the debris and the splinters from the wood. And there is a strange feeling through this as you don't see bodies, but you see the shapes underneath the covers. And Jessica looks to you, she's like, what happened? The season tree was here.
I think Florence waits for a long time, and this whole trip she's kind of been walking only as quickly as Jessica is moving. And finally, when they kind of get to this site, Florence stops, and she kind of turns to look at Jessica and say, a terrible, dangerous explosion happened here. And I think you were caught up in it. I think you were injured, and I don't think you made it.
And there's a very long pause. And you see her look past you and goes, that's not... There he is, there's Roland. And she sort of like runs past you. She doesn't notice, but you feel her almost pass through your arm. And you really feel it. You feel that cold sort of shudder go through. And over by, actually not that far from where Tolan got thrown, you can see this little boy that looks very much like Jessica. And there's an older man with him. You can guess probably father or maybe an older brother. It's not too clear. And the little boy specifically is sat down by this blanket that is covering someone. And you hear sniffing rather than seeing actual tears. You see him rubbing his face. But you can hear the older man, probably the father, just say, no words specifically. He's got his shoulders gripped and is sort of rubbing them and sort of knelt down behind him and put an arm around him, hugging him very, very closely and almost rocking him gently. And you see Jessica run over and she's just like, Roland, where have you been? Hi, Dad. And she's sort of moving over to them. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And there's no reaction from them.
And I think the moment Florence sees Jessica, and really Jessica's spirit, her energy, her essence, run towards it, Florence also runs to close the gap. And she's not much of a runner, so even in this short distance, when she makes it up to the two, she's like, okay, I'm so sorry. This is going to sound crazy. Okay. My name is Florence, and I know, and she'll look at the little boy, and then she'll actually lower herself onto one knee to look at him, and then she'll look up at this other person and say, I know that your name is Roland. Mine is Florence. It's nice to meet you. And the reason why I know that is because your sister, she's not here with you anymore, not physically, but her spirit still lingers. She misses you. She's been looking for you.
And you see the little boy look up at you, very confused, very red in the face. You can see watery eyes and what looks like where tears have been. And you see a very pink little cat, almost kitten-like Inarque, sort of sat where his legs are crossed, looking up at you, almost mimicking exactly what he does. And the father sort of looks at you and said, did you know Jessica?
I didn't. I didn't know Jessica, not before the explosion, but I'm speaking to her now. And then Florence will look up at where Jessica is and say, is there anything you want to share with these two? My mouth is yours.
And Jessica is looking down wide-eyed and looks paler than before. And very softly, you hear, that's mine. And just a few inches away from the blanket, you can see what looks to be like a snapped leather tie bracelet type thing. And she sort of looks at her wrist and she's wearing exactly the same one. Is that me?
And Florence just slowly nods.
And she's backing away from this, well, from herself. And this young boy, Roland, is looking up at you almost expectantly. And the father as well is looking at you, almost like he looks a little bit angry, but he looks incredibly distraught at the same time. And Jessica pauses to look at you. Am I gone?
I don't think you're ever really gone. You're not there anymore. You're somewhere else, but I don't think you're ever truly
But I didn't do
gone.
anything wrong.
You didn't. You really, really didn't.
And again, there's a moment of her looking around and probably taking in the scene that you can see. But what if I don't want to be here? I don't want to be like this. I want to be with them. Dad can't cook. Dad's never been able to cook. I'm the one who always had to cook. What is Roland going to eat now? He can't just live off sandwiches.
And Florence just is very patiently and is like, her eyes are locked up in this space above. That's true. He'll probably live off of sandwiches for a bit, but things change.
As you say these things, you see the dad raise his eyebrows. And Jessica walks over to where her fallen bracelet is. And you see her for a moment try and reach down, pick it up, and she can't pick it up. And she starts getting frustrated. And you can see her trying to, for a moment, and then she just sort of drops down and puts her hands either side of her head. And she's like, I just want Ronan to have that. That's all. I want to go.
And Florence has seen this not once, not 10 times. She's seen this over and over again. And she's patient. And then finally she leans down. I would love to help with that. I'd love to help with anything you want to say to them or that you want them to have. This bracelet, this is for Roland. I'll very carefully take it off and make sure he gets this.
And this is probably one of the more, this is actually quite a calm reaction, especially to what you've had before. And there's a very sad, almost like you can't even call it a smile, it's like a quirk to the lip. She's like, I just want him to have it. I want to go. I'm gonna go. For now. I'm gonna go.
And this won't be the only way that you are still connected to them. Not even.
He won't say thank you.
That's okay.
He can't talk.
That's okay. And Florence will very gingerly, and before I think she starts messing with the bracelet, she looks up to the other two, Roland and then to the father. Roland, Jessica wants you to have this. I'm gonna very carefully untie it so that you can have it. And then she'll very carefully go about her work of untying the bracelet. She'll give a last kind of glance to Jessica and then turn to Roland and then very carefully present it to him. She didn't want to go before making sure that you had this.
And there's a moment where Roland looks towards you, looks confused, looks back up at his father, who just nods. And as she said, Roland doesn't say anything, just signs the word, "Thank you," and quickly sort of takes it and holds it very closely to them. And when you look back, Jessica's not there. And the little boy stands up again. Thank you again. And the father starts to lead him away. And I think that is where we are going to take our break. So everyone go get a drink, go have to do some stretches or whatever, and we'll see you back in just a moment. Bye. Oh, hi. Back in the Apollo, you are approaching Elizabeth, who is very much just sat there. She seems to be very focused. Every now and then throughout the evening, you've seen her eyes sort of fall back as if there's not glazed over, but somewhere else, almost in very Tolan fashion at the moment. And there's a moment where she just about sees you and looks up. She is a mess. Like, you're used to seeing her with very dead straight hair, with looking very prim and proper. You can see her white jacket and sort of almost dress / waistcoat, very fitted, soaked with red across her shoulder and down her arm. And she looks up at you, and she's just like, "How are you?"
I'm fine. I'm just fine. I mean, maybe I might have some bruises on my butt from falling back when the explosion happened, but that seems to be the worst of it. How are you, Miss gets stabbed in the shoulder with debris?
And she laughs at that, and then she's like, "Ow!" And she sort of sits forward a bit. She's like, "I am doing much better, thank you." Axel will probably kill me though when he sees this. I don't know where he is.
Oh, do you have your phone on you? Do you want to? Does he need to?
He never answers his phone. He often turns up. It's his. And she smiles. It's his thing. He tends to know where I am.
Mm. Well, if there's anything I can do to help, I mean, if you need me to go back to the airship for anything, or
thank you, Paula, for all of this.
No, it's no problem. I mean, as we were talking about the other day, things have been getting pretty crazy in Karnan recently. And I just, I feel like I just need to do something. I just need to, I got to do something. I can't just sit in my motel room anymore. I've been doing that for about a week, and I'm getting really bored, if I'm being honest. So,
and she sort of laughs again, and you see this little magpie, sort of a narquay, is sort of not on her, but more so sat next to her, sort of hopping up and down. And she looks up at you. I think you would really like Valadris. But after all of this, I understand if you don't want to go.
I really would like to go. If I'm being honest, it's one of my top, I'd say it's in my top 5 fantasies, and I have a running list. I mean, and she pulls out her
she's
notepad, and she flips
your notepad,
yeah, and her notepad is so crinkled, and there's coffee stains on all the pages, and tons of pages ripped out. One of them where, of course, she had her paranoid list and whatnot, but Yeah, no, but she can't. But Paula, she can't find the page, so she just like closes it up and puts it away. But yeah, no, I do have a list though of all the places I want to go, and Valadris is way up there.
You like to travel?
I travel more in like a metaphorical sense. Like the world of books is really infinite, and so I consider myself like an explorer of books, and the shelves. But I really would like to see more than just the.
Well, you would love the Valadria Library then.
I think I would.
It's one of my favorite places, and as I believe, knowledge is for everyone. So when we go, if you still wish to go, I can always show you around.
I really would like that. I really would like that. Also, and Paula, she takes her bag off her shoulder, reaches in and rummages around a little bit for the makeup compact, and she puts it out. I really think this doesn't belong to me.
She looks down at it. It's like, you can have it. I've got loads more.
I know, but we were both there. We both knew what was going on. It wasn't my best moment, if I'm being honest.
And she does like laugh at this again. I'd like to say I knew you were going to do it, but I hadn't met you properly at that point.
That must be a useful skill to have.
And she sort of, an odd look on her face. She's like, sometimes you see things and she sort of looks around, you don't want to see. But it can give you a warning.
You knew that the tree was going to do whatever it did, but you also knew that something is happening.
I knew when it was too late. It's one of the more frustrating things. Some of the visions, as Axel calls them, they come minutes before. It doesn't really give you time to even do anything about it. As a child, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what my ability was. It's why I wear, and she holds up her gloves that you can see she's put back on. I have more control of it now, but imagine as a kid playing in the school, playing tag. You can see everything about a person. Holding your parents' hand as you walk to school that day or walk home. And sometimes it's just feelings, sometimes it's images of what they're going through. Happy, sad, everything like that. And it kind of spoils surprises. They got me a dog 1 year for my birthday, and I already knew it was coming.
Yeah, I definitely could see the downsides to that. I guess, sometimes if I'm being honest, and you can't tell anyone I told you this because this is actually like kind of personal, but sometimes when I'm in the library and I see all the kids with their Inanakwe practicing spells and honing their abilities, you know what? There's at least that little part of you that wishes that I could participate. But I'm sure it's like a blessing and a curse. Am I right? I mean, it sounds like there's two sides of every coin. The grass is always greener on the other side. And Paula starts like getting all flustered. And
yeah, she's like, "Well, do you mean you wish you had magic, or you wish you had an Anarchway?"
Well, what's the difference?
The Anarchway is more than just a feeder of magic. And she looks over to this magpie that's currently sort of nestling sort of in the crook of her leg where she sits. It's a companion. It's someone who knows you more than anything. And there's something about it because you see it develop. As a child, when I was growing up, she wasn't a magpie at first. She was just this color that followed me around. It was actually kind of weird. It was only when I got to 4 or 5 years old, finally became a magpie. But you can find that in other ways. Magic is handy. And she sort of smiles and nods, and she's like, but as you said, sometimes it can be a bit of a curse.
When Liz starts talking about how an Inonakwe knows you better than anyone else, and how it's almost, and goes on that little monologue, Paula kind of starts to like stick her nose up a little bit, and she gets a little bit tense. Magic seems like it could be very useful and sometimes fun and sometimes exciting. But I really do pride myself on my independence. And I don't know how I'd feel being tied to something else.
And she sort of nods. You can tell it's not necessarily like an understanding, it's more an acceptance of your opinion. And she's like, you're right. I suppose if you've never had one, or if you've always had one, it's different.
I'm sure it is. Not to make you concerned again, but how do you think things are in Valadris right now? You said that there's a similar situation going on there, and
similar in the way that there is one of these marks up in the sky, and I do have concern that we are prepping other things in Valadria, which, not that it isn't a devastation when it happens, it is everywhere. But there is so much in Valadria right now. If we lose it, we lose so much information and history and knowledge. And that scares me. The people are knowledge. The library is knowledge, just everything there. Is one of the oldest cities in Dunera.
Oh yeah, I know. I've read all the books. I agree. I think that losing the library, losing all that information, and losing a people and a culture, and those thoughts strike fear deep into my heart. It's one of the reasons why I'm so protective of my own library. I don't even let the kids dog ear the books. I mean, we need to preserve the history of this world, and
she sort of laughs and she's like, now you sound like you're from Veladris.
I'm afraid there's so many people that seem to want to bury it. There's so many people that want to keep secrets or feel like they have to keep secrets. And I just can't understand.
There's a lot we have to learn, and there's a lot of people that have information that hasn't been shared yet. Veladria is a center of knowledge, the capital of Veladris. And I hope we can always add to the knowledge to better the future. I don't know what that was. She sort of gestures to outside. She's like, but I'd like it not to happen again.
I'd like to find out what that was and why it happened, and then make sure that it doesn't happen again. Well, I mean, I want to make sure that it doesn't happen again, like regardless of whether we find out why and what it was, but I would also like to find out why and what it was. My brain is all tuckered out. I was feeling like all this adrenaline all day, and this conversation just kind of knocked that adrenaline right out of me. I think I am ready to pass out.
Need some sleep. I know I need some sleep. However, and she sort of points over to where you can see Tolan. He's going to be waking up any minute now. And Tolan, you feel again like that gasp, as if you've been holding your breath for a long time. And as you come around, you see the ceiling, well, a peeling painted ceiling of Tola's dance studio.
Oh. Well, the sky was certainly prettier than this.
You hear that, Paula. And Reese, you do also see Tolan sort of roll over.
Talon. And Paula, she definitely perks up and rushes up by Talon's side to check on you and checks your fever.
Where am I?
You're at the dance studio. Are you okay? Do you need...
Doesn't look like a dance studio.
Water? Oh, well, not anymore. Water. I'm gonna go get water. Hey, Reese, are you up?
Yeah.
Can you just keep an eye on Talon? I'm just gonna go get him some water.
Reese, you're here.
Yes.
Did you go there as well?
No.
Huh. He sort of looks down at his hand. Is he still holding the disruptor?
Yeah, it's still very tightly clasped in your hand, like death grip.
He starts patting his pockets down and yet pulls out his notebook. Are there any notes in it? There's not, are there? It was just in his head. No. Oh, I had so many notes. He starts to frantically try to recreate his notes. And so I think he probably does get his focus thing. So he's probably paying attention to none of his friends trying to find out what the heck went on with him, because he's just totally zones in on trying to do it. Is he able to
remember?
Yeah, am I able to capture this? Or is it like a dream and it's gone? Like as I put pencil and paper, it's falling away.
Cool. Whatever you remember, I will let you note down as Tolan remembering.
Okay. There was one with swirls. It was broken. There was other ones. And then he like comes to a start and starts frantically sketching out the big arch, since he had examined it so closely, the two magpies, the crossed swords. And I think in this case, he starts off doing it kind of like almost like that sort of scientific architectural detail of not doing it, but then I think he starts plotting it out more and more to do the entire arch, and just is frantically in his sort of very methodical, it's not artistic drawing, it's more like drafting, from his his engineering, trying to recreate this arch. And I think as he as everything else starts to drift away, because he's so focused on that and focused on the arch, when he starts drawing the magpies, he looks up if his friends are around him, or if Paula has brought water. We need to find what was her name with the magpie? There was a magpie there.
Hush, Talon. And Paula will
No, you don't understand. You don't understand. I wasn't here. I was somewhere else. I was someplace in between. There was the guardian that I saw, the guardian that was worried, that was concerned, that was afraid. He was afraid. Was there. He brought me back. Did you not? What happened? Is the tree gone? Our arch is gone.
The tree is, it's like gone. It's done.
It's gone.
Well, the good news is what the other side is gone as well. I claim that's good. I don't know.
Talon, you just woke up from a really intense and scary sleep after a giant explosion. I think you just need to rest for a minute.
But I was in this place. There was cobblestones. They went all the way to the horizon, as far as you can see. And there was arches. All different types, but almost like the arches inside the church, almost like the arches inside the church, but not like they copied them, like the church had copied something older, something primal. But the important part was this big arch, and he's like holding it up and showing it to them. It's like, we need to find the magpies. And I assume that Reese would see the crossed swords, if that's a symbol you're familiar with.
Is it a symbol I'm familiar with?
The magpie is.
The coin?
The magpie is, but not.
Okay, I didn't know whether you had asked whether Reese had showed me his coin. I thought that was the crossed swords.
I think as soon as Tolan's yelling about the magpie, Reese is already like fishing that coin out of his pocket and looking at it and comparing what the coin looks like to the drawing that Tolan has.
The magpie itself on the coin is give or take, because it's Tolan drawing from memory, is almost exactly the same.
And
Where did you get this, Reese? Did they give it to you? Did a guardian give it to you?
Someone in the church gave it to me, but they weren't part of the church.
On that night?
Mm-hmm.
I know someone who has an intimate relationship with magpies. And Paula will look over her shoulder at Liz.
And
Tolan met Liz. I'm trying to recall. Tolan met Liz, didn't he?
yeah, Tolan met Liz.
Okay, yeah, because we were on the ship. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The lady from the Valadrian lady, yes. Do you know where she is? Did the airships leave?
Oh, nope, she is right over there. And she'll point to the wall that Liz is propped up on.
Tolan tries to get up, but I think he probably can't.
Liz isn't looking in your direction. You can see she's moving herself, and you can see that wound that must be like in her shoulder. She's sort of propping herself up.
But I think we can address this in the morning. It's like, and Paul checks her phone, see the time. It's like 2.
Yeah, 2, 3 a.m. right now. After
Yeah,
that.
it's like 3 a.m. Talon.
Something incredible has happened.
Yeah, things are happening all the time nowadays, but we still need to sleep.
Well, apparently I've been sleeping quite a bit.
Well, apparently you've been walking around some cobbled streets with archways. I don't know. It doesn't sound like sleep to me.
I actually kind of agree with Paula. I don't think you actually slept.
Listen, here's the leftover of gin soup. It's not the good stuff. I'm very sorry. And here's some water. Why don't you just have this for now? Settle in.
He looks around now frantically, trying to look at faces. Where's Averick? I left him at the lab. That's hopefully far enough. How big was the explosion? He tries to pull out his phone.
It's probably dead. I think if it's like being sent out.
He whips it, wings it across the dance studio at the wall.
It's not dead because you haven't charged it.
Right.
When you set off the charger.
Oh yeah, it would have killed everything. He wings it. I mean, just whips this old flip phone across the useless.
And as this is happening, and Reese, you almost sort of phase out that last bit as you see this phone get launched across the room and crash into the other side. It sort of splits in half. But your eyes are lingering on some of the drawings that Tolan has done. And you stare at them for a moment, and there's a few of them that are so familiar to you. Uncomfortably so. And in your head, you hear a voice, a memory of a voice of a little girl, your sister. Just, Reese, come on! And we're going to have a flashback. And there is... Let's have a think. The weather where you are on Red Wolf Island is cold, freezing. The temperatures are so low, but you're used to this. And the breeze itself is bitter. It's getting dark, but it's always gets darker early here. And the full moon hangs up in the sky like this sort of like argent pendant with these an almost sort of bluish glow to them. You go out on these early evening walks often. This is before your Red Wolf companion. This is a long time ago. What does Reese look like, and how old is he?
I think he's maybe in his early 20s at the oldest. Maybe right on that like 19-20 cusp. And there's less gray in his hair by a bit. There's less lines on his face. He probably doesn't have any facial hair yet. And instead of looking serious or even a little sad, he's probably smiling. This is his favorite thing to do with one of his favorite people in the world.
Okay. Welcome, readers. You're just in time. Where you are, the snow is deep. Like you can see it like your legs are sinking in this very soft powder, which sort of reaches just below your knees. And there are sort of mountains all along the horizon encasing you in this scenario as like this very soft snow sort of flutters down, and you have to blink a couple of times when you feel it rest on your eyelashes. Just ahead of you, Astrid, your little sister. You hear her voice. You don't quite hear what she says, but she's waving her heavy, like, mittened hand towards you. You can see her. This isn't like a blizzard or anything. And she's smiling and she's laughing. You can see like she tugs up this very chunky scarf around her ears, tucking in her very dark raven-like hair to keep in as much warmth as possible. You see these big sort of leather and fur jackets, and she's like up to her waist. And she smiles at you, this 9-year-old face, this happy, sort of very pale, rosy-cheeked from where the cold is sort of biting at them. And she grins at you like she always does. It's more like she's baring her teeth rather than actually a proper smile. And she's like, "It's up here! It's up here, look!" And she's sort of like pointing and waving and jumping up and down. You see that she hits the snow bit and sort of disappears a bit deeper.
I think he's trudging as fast as he can, and he's excited to get there as well, but there's also that it'll still be there when we get there.
Yeah, she's full of energy. As she sort of like, you see her taking those giant steps where she lifts her knees as high as she can, trying to get through this snow. And this moonlight is very bluish, very silvery as it sort of bathes her, you, and the scene of the set of this ring of stones further up ahead, which you can see her running towards. She falls over a couple of times, but she always does this as she pushes herself back up. You can see as her digging the snow out of her scarf that's obviously gone down her jacket. And she waits for you to catch up. And you both stand before this huge ring of stones. And it's a very beautiful but eerie feeling at the same time as the shadows are cast across on the snow. And you feel her tug on your sleeve and look up at you and smile. "Are we going? I want to go have a look. Like a proper look."
Yeah, we're gonna have a look, and we'll dig out the notebooks from our packs, and we're gonna definitely
do the
take
rubbings.
a look.
Do the rubbings. Yeah. Okay. And you can see this massive rucksack on her back, which You've probably not let her fill to the top, because if she fell over, she'd stay in the snow. And it's far too big, but all that's in there are these 2 notebooks and these rubbing sort of like charcoal and things like that. You're sort of carrying all the actual main things needed. And she starts to approach this circle, and you see her step into it and just look around in wonder.
He gives her a moment alone before he follows. He's done things like this, and there's that moment of wonder that he doesn't want to spoil. And then he steps up and, what do you see, Astrid?
And her little shoulders sort of rise and fall with like a satisfying sigh, like, look at this one, look at this one. And she runs over to one of the stones, and almost, it's very rough, I guess in shape you could say more triangular, as it's buried deep in this snow. And she puts out a mittened hand and runs her hand over it, brushing away from these swirl-like symbols on this stone. And then she goes, and then this one, and moves over to the next and the next, sort of pointing out eagerly all of these swirls. You can see these bizarre carvings of tall creatures with antlers. You can see these carvings of very much the scenery around you, these mountain-esque things. The one that you've seen in stories before looks like a running man. And the swirls in particular seem to be on each stone. And then at the bottom, as you see her sort of digging a little bit, when she's like, I can see another symbol, look. And she's like on her hands and knees, hands down, and dragging the snow away. And you see the sketch, the carving, deep set of a wolf. This must be because of, you know, like the red wolves and stuff.
Do you remember the stories?
I do. I've never seen one though.
Why don't you tell me one of them?
Well, Mum always says that they come in like great need, but that's like the times we're not in any great need anymore, and that, you know, everything's okay now, so they sort of disappeared. But apparently, now I don't know how much I believe this, because the chorus from school told me this, and I don't believe him. But he said at one point there was a group of people that had these red wolves, and they're like they work together, they fight together. It's like, you know how people over the sea and stuff, they get Inarquays and we don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our version, but we don't have it. I've always wanted one though. You know, I've read stories about people having their Inarquays and stuff like that. They say it's because the magic's too heavy in the air in the main cities here.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely let the magic permeate as opposed to focusing it into things like they do over the sea.
Yeah, but I don't know why. Mum just says it's always the way it's been.
That's what I was gonna say.
I mean, can't have an Inarquay. I wouldn't mind a red wolf. You know?
I mean, don't all your friends want either an Inarquay or a red wolf?
Well, yeah, but like, I just want to know what it's like to have one, you know? I mean, you could be mine.
Maybe you could be mine.
That could work. I am smaller than you.
And smarter.
And she nods at that. I am. But she sort of pulls out this notebook and sort of flattens the paper to it and struggles a little bit with her mitten at first. and gets this charcoal and starts rubbing, sort of creating the pattern on her paper.
I think he lets her do that, and he's been unpacking the actual like stuff to set up a place to rest since it's in the evening.
And
So
you can roll out bed rolls. Is there anything else in particular you would have brought with you?
He probably has some kind of small shovel, things to make a fire, maybe maybe like a big piece of leather to unroll to like use almost like a lean-to roof to keep the snow off, even though the snow also will insulate. And stuff to make dinner.
And you can slowly start setting all of this up. You can see her darting from rock to rock, not really helping with the setup, but then she never does.
And he never asks her to.
And she's got like this, her hood has fallen back, and her very, very dark hair, almost exactly like your mother's hair, this raven-like hair, is jammed in, so it's like puffing out at the sides. So it's that she looks like a very round individual with all of these layers on, because she's not allowed to go out without them. You can't see these heavy leather fur-lined boots, sort of tied all the way up the side of, all the way up her ankle shins and then up to her legs to make sure your snow doesn't get in. As she sort of wades through the snow. And could you make an intellect check for me, please? Okay.
5.
No one is rolling well today. You sit there, you get this fire going, and it's literally the only warmth you have without getting in your bedrolls. And you can hear Astrid doing what Astrid always does. She is humming and singing to herself the same song over and over again. A low song. It's a bit monotoned. There's never really, not really a recognizable tune to it. Modern day Reese has now heard it from someone else singing. But Astrid hums it. And as it always does, she doesn't see it. That the air around her colors slightly. As if there was something behind her, but it doesn't manifest. She sings.
Is it always the same color? Is it a specific color?
It sort of, it seems to shift between different colors, but definitely lingers around one more than another. It seems to be almost like a yellowish golden color.
I think he finally gets out his own notebook to start taking a few notes and rubbings and stuff. And knowing that she's going to keep doing whatever she's doing, he just casually, let me know if you need something.
And you hear a call back almost immediately. Food. I'm hungry. What do we bring? She sort of shuffles over, like wades through the snow. You can hear the crunch of it that moves around her.
What do we always bring? Soup.
Again? I mean, I like it, but again?
Well, I managed to sneak out some jerky this time. Hopefully Mom won't catch it for a couple days.
And she excitedly quickly heads over, like drops onto the mat by the fire, legs crossed, and you can just see her little face poking out. She's pulled her hood back up. Holds her hands out. You can see her like with one set of like with her teeth, she's pulling off one of the mittens and like flicking it to get it off, so that she can quickly reach for this soup and jerky as fast as possible.
He sets down what he was holding and starts dealing with getting her that and using the nice sturdy plateware that they bring on these trips, so that even though she took her mittens off, it doesn't burn her to hold it. And it's, you know, like that nice hot cup of tea in your hands.
Yeah, it's like steaming. It's you can see like where her red cheeks and red nose, you can see the nose sort of starting to calm down a little bit. It's not as rosy as it once was, and you can see that dampness of like sweat, or where like the snow has melted on her hair from the heat of this soup that smells so good. You can see her doing what your mother hates, which is taking some of the jerky and almost using it as a spoon. As she sort of almost hugs this bowl, mouth full. She's like,
So what do you think this is?
It could be lots of things.
We can't tell anyone else it's here until we've investigated it fully.
I mean, what else have we found that's similar to this? It could be a marker of a place of ritual. It could be
Just bits of rocks sticking out the ground.
but they're carved. You don't just leave stuff like that lying around usually.
No, but
and she sort of reaches back for a notebook again and like opens it on this page where it's literally dots, like, well, all circles, and she's like,
they all line up.
Well, we followed them to here, didn't we?
Uh-huh. So that means this has got to be important. That, or they built this with a whole lot of effort for no reason.
It's too important, I think, to have no reason. Alice, is there any other shapes in the area, like with these circles of rocks?
you don't know any other like hinges, like any circles, but you know there are markers. There is one in the sort of the townish type place of Red Wolf Island, which would have isn't well known. It's more like a keystone. And on your trips out, as you like to be out and about with Astrid, you started finding these stones with these bizarre carvings on them. And it's taken a long time, and she's been doing it with you since she was very young, a couple of years. It's finally led you to here.
Well, Astrid, what do your notes tell us? What do we have to work with?
And she sort of puts the bowl aside after you can see her face in it for a moment and puts it down.
You know, I don't really know. I don't get it. Like, why just have a big circle of stones in the middle of nowhere? But that one over there's warm to touch. That, or I'm getting frostbite. I don't know which one it is.
And she sort of looks at her hand to check she hasn't got frostbite.
Yeah, I think he reaches to like take her hand, and also, I don't think it's frostbite.
Yeah. Well, nothing's fallen off yet.
And she sort of like checks her hands, and they seem absolutely fine.
Do you want me to show you?
Yes.
Okay.
And you see her start putting on the mittens again, pulling up the hood, getting ready to leave just like this small shelter. As she wades through the snow, it's got a bit deeper now. It's sort of up to her waist. It's just above your knees. And she shuffles through. You've both hiked through snow so many times. And she takes you over to this much larger stone. It's more like it's two stones with one across the top, almost at a slant, and another one the other side. And you can see these circles over and over again, these swirls, these almost very human-esque figures carved into them, the wolf at the bottom. And she holds out her mitten and presses it.
I can feel the heat through this.
He'll take his glove off and put his bare hand up against it to see.
You press your hand against it and you do feel that warmth sort of radiating off of it. Could you roll me an intellect check, please?
I'm gonna spend some from my pool this time. Okay. Okay. So now I gotta fiddle with that. There we go. Okay. Oh, cool.
Ooh. Okay. You put your hand to this stone and you almost jump at that moment as someone walks past you. It's like they don't see you. They don't make tracks. They don't make anything in the snow. And then there's another and another. You sort of hold this, your hand to the stone, and as you do, you see another person, a woman, a very tall woman, with a huge sword on her back, and a red wolf walking behind her, walks straight through the circle, past you. Astrid doesn't seem to see this. She's looking at you almost eagerly to see, like, is it warm? But this woman with thick hair tied back, what looks to be some sort of paint across one of her cheeks, stride through the snow, again leaving no tracks, no marks. Walk through the center of the circle and out the other side. But the wolf itself stops, turns back, sniffs the air, and you see its eyes look at you briefly and blink before turning away again. As you don't hear a voice, but there's a whistle, and it bounds off after this woman as she disappears into this almost blizzard now as it started to pick up. And you hear Astrid's voice.
How did you do that?
And underneath your hand, the swirls have started to glow. They've started to shimmer. The air around you is like it's become hot, like heat waves, these rainbow-like colors as you hold this stone. And you feel like you're looking through the stone now, as if it was a window, maybe a mirror or glass. And you are looking into a place that you just cannot describe. And it's like everything is rushing, like you are moving, you are watching this through the perspective of something else before it pauses in this haze on a face. A face that looks straight back at you as you hold your hand there. It sees you. and sort of beneath your hand, you can see these symbols almost start to spread, only in light, not the carvings, across this stone, creating this mirror, this glass, and this face turns and looks towards you.
I think there's a moment where he considers pulling his hand away, and instead he starts telling Astrid what he's seen so that we can make sure it's noted somewhere.
She pulls out her notebook as you hold your hand there, and she's sort of scribbling everything you say down. And to you, you see this person stand. Again, it's almost like you can't describe it in words. But you give the outline. And you can hear again, "Why can't I see it? Why can't I see it?" And this person that stands the other side, see their head tilt to one side as they look at you, and they look you up and down. And they also pause and they look to Astrid for a moment. And there's something wrong about them. They look too big. Their body proportions don't seem to be right. And you sort of get a pullback. It's like you can't really see the scenery around them. It's like it is almost as if you're on a speeding train and everything is a blur other than this focus. And you get this feeling that this person can see you as much as you can see them.
I think he would definitely try and pull his hand away from the carvings then.
You tug and you can't seem to let go. As you see this white light almost holding you there. And there's this bizarre sensation where your hand is getting really hot now and you can't put it back. It's like when like sticky ice, when you're really having to pull. And Astrid's looking at you like, "What's wrong?" As you lock eyes with this person, this thing, and it starts to run straight towards you. And it is sprinting, and you can see it move with intent and aggression. As it sprints, its arms are moving fast, and you realize you've been looking at it from a distance as this thing runs towards the glass, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you feel the ground around you shake for a moment as it almost falls down onto all fours and starts cantering towards you. This is a very human-esque shape as it runs. And you see symbols of swirls and things glowing, almost tattooed over its body as it comes tearing towards you. And I need you to make one more intellect check, please.
Okay. I am gonna spend some effort again and roll with advantage because this has been going poorly.
You can hear it. You hear it is the drumming of the hands and the feet hitting the ground, digging into the earth on the other side. Again, it's all blurs, but you see these bits of earth get thrown up. And you just hear, "It's mine, it's mine, it's mine," on every single gallop as it goes. I can smell it, I can taste it, I can get it. and it's almost like hissing to itself as it throws itself towards what you can now only really see as glass. And everything shatters. Everything explodes. And again, it's not like a wave, but you feel a force hit you as if you've just been punched, but like as if someone had taken a tree trunk and just swung it towards you as you get flung across the side. I will say on a 20, you miss one of the stones and you sort of go skidding back in this, and you can spring in your head, and those footsteps, like the running. You feel the hot grasp of your hand as you feel like you've been separated, almost ripped from this stone. And you feel a hand your ankles and start to drag you back towards the stone as this happens. And you're sort of very dazed, very delusional. You can't quite see anything. This blizzard is ridiculous now. It's almost becoming just a white mess. You can hear Astrid screaming your name. And you can hear like her just shouting, get off him, like as you can't see her, but you know she's somewhere near the stone trying to attack whatever has hold of you.
I think in whatever dazed state he's in, he's trying to tell her to leave, like, Astrid, run, Astrid, just get out of here.
You hear the yelling again. You don't hear much else, and I'm gonna roll something actually. There is a moment where she is yelling. You can't quite hear what she's saying. It's like the snowstorm is blocking everything, not just vision, but also words. And as she does, you feel that grip let go of you as you hear it cry out in pain, almost like as if something has jabbed it or taken it. And you remember that knife you always carry in your backpack, that one you've always carried, and you hear almost this ungodly sound of this screech, but it's low. You actually see around you as this thing lets go, you get thrown over onto your back. You're buried deep in snow, so you can't see much either side of you, but you see the tops of all these stones starting to glow, all turn to glass and start to shake as the snow starts falling off the top of them. And you hear a mighty sort of thud and crack. And you don't hear Astrid anymore.
He's trying to get up and he's trying to dig himself out of the snow, and all he's doing is saying her name as loud as he can. Astrid! Astrid!
Roll me an intellect check, please.
18.
Okay. You sort of rise out of this snow all around you. You can see the stone ahead of you, the one you touched, shattered like glass. But it is stone again. You see these huge sort of like what look like drag marks in the snow, and two of the stones are completely smashed. The glowing has stopped. There is no light other than the moon. Your fire has been extinguished at some point. And you stand up and you're looking around because this snowstorm is getting heavier and heavier. And it's almost a whiteout. But the one thing you do see is what looks like a channel in the snow. And at the end of it is what looks to be a small pile of clothing.
He rushes over.
It's a jacket with a fur hood. Those long boots, sort of almost curled up where she has been flung out of the circle. And you see that oversized leather coat, that sort of fur around the edges, almost flutter in the breeze. You can run over and you sort of fall to your knees beside her as Astrid lays there, not moving. You can see her eyes are open. She is as limp as a rag doll, and her hair is catching the snow as it falls.
I think he starts to like scoop her into his lap a little, and he's trying very hard to control his breathing, but it's just coming out in rough gasps, and he's just like, Astrid, come on, wake up. And he's like, not roughly, but he's like patting her cheek lightly and like rubbing her hair, like, Astrid, come on, Astrid, wake up, please, Astrid.
As you're sort of like moving her face around, you can feel it get colder and colder. And her eyes just stare straight up into the sky. And as you're holding her, you're sort of just realizing how small and delicate she actually was and is. You can see in her mitten the one thing she has held onto very tightly is that knife from your pack. You can see what looks something red on the edge of the blade. You can guess that whatever it was she did, it's probably what made the thing let you go.
If he can't get a response, I think he just curls up around her and starts to cry and say her name.
You sit in the snow for hours. Hours and hours. Do you close her eyes?
I think so, yeah.
Hello, Raiders. You put your hands over her eyes and pull the lid shut. Her hair is sort of the leather, the red leather that sort of tied her hair into this very thick plait that was once stuffed in that scarf and that coat. You can see it resting in the snow as her hair is gone almost very wild. And it's getting to the point where her hair is turning almost white with this snow. And she is cold as you sit there. How long do you stay there?
I honestly don't think he remembers how long. That whole time is it stretches on to infinity in certain points of view and is an instant in others. But I think it's morning before he moves.
there's part of you that, as you sit with her, you stay outside the circle, almost becoming half buried yourself in the snow all at the back. And you would swear that you could hear her singing again somewhere. You're not too sure. And she always wants to do everything with you. As much as your mother half the time would say she was too young, you'd always let her go with you. Even if it meant sneaking out, you'd always have fun, and she loved it. It was the thing that made her face light up when you were saying, I found something. And every time she'd be sat at home waiting for the next time you went out, she'd be drawing, sketching out the rubbings you've taken. Always has a list for what to pack. And you sit there for hours and hours before the sun comes up. And as it does, her singing stops. And Reese, you're back in the dance studio. Lingering over this drawing, this sketch in Tolan's book. The same swirl you placed your hand on all those years ago.
I think he starts and with a jerk turns away and kind of like clears his throat, and if anyone is paying attention, it's obvious that he's rubbing at his eyes. And I think the only thing he can get out is, I've seen that before.
And Polar and Tolan, you will have both seen that. You also see Astrid, this wolf, pad very closely to Reese and almost nuzzle at him, almost like not leaving him be. Won't stop, sort of licking his hand, trying to pull at his sleeve, just anything.
This swirled pattern. It was on another arch that was broken as well. In the place where I was. The same as ours. Not completely destroyed like the season tree. It was broken. But the swirls still were there. It was all but where I landed.
Do you know what it means, Reese?
It's a marker. It's a connection to that. You said you were in the in-between?
It was somewhere but nowhere. With all of these arches, one was what's left of the season tree's arch. While there were no doors to be seen, you could walk through them there in that place. From what we saw happen here, before those hands broke through. I can only assume that it is a giant courtyard of doors to other places, but also where other places can find their way to here.
I think that's correct. They're doorways to somewhere else.
Reese,
And
are you okay?
he takes a long breath to try and steady himself, and it's obvious when he says I'm fine that it's not true, but
Would you
Totally.
like a hug?
no, I'm okay.
I think Tolan just sort of puts his hand on Reese's shoulder, but not necessarily patting, basically to sort of, he's placing his hand there to give him comfort, but also not making it a big sign. He almost uses it to push himself off and just sort of pats his pockets. And as he always does, there's one or two tea bags in there, because Tolan and Aggie, and just sort of says, as he has his hand on Reese's shoulder, maybe gives it a little squeeze, I'll find some water and make some tea. Sort of stumbles off into the dance studio.
Well, Reese, this swirl certainly seems to mean something to you.
I've seen it before. It was not a good day.
That almost feels like an omen, because today is not a very good day. Well, let's hope that tomorrow is a better day. But I know Talon's all excited because he just woke up and he had some crazy fever dreams. But I think we all really could use a little bit of rest at this point.
I don't even know why I'm here, Paula. I don't even remember why I came to Karnan in the first place.
What do you mean you don't remember? I thought you're a wanderer of some sort.
Well, yeah, I wander, but something always leads me somewhere, and I can't see what's happening. This door, the church, these symbols.
Well, there's no doubt that it's all connected at this point. I mean, there's too much evidence that something ties all of this together. And yesterday, Florence mentioned that she felt like somehow she was supposed to find us, and maybe that's true for you too. You know, I think in some ways we're all a little lost right now, and we're all just kind of wandering in our own way. But and it seems like we have a purpose now.
I think he's listening to what Paula says, but there's a moment before he answers where he's just like almost under his breath, maybe not fully realizing he says it, but it's just like, I wish she was still here. She was so much smarter than I am. And then he looks back up to Paula, and if you think you know what we're supposed to do, I'm all ears, Paula.
Oh, I have no clue. I'm sure whoever she was much smarter than I am. I preserve the information, but I definitely don't know all of it, and you know, I'm kind of figuring things out too. But maybe Villadris is a good place to start. They seem to have a lot of information there.
It does seem like that's the direction we're being pulled.
Florence, you're walking back from the season tree. And it is cooler tonight. Not very cold, but you can definitely feel the autumn has arrived and the cooler weather is coming. And you walk down those paved streets. The streets are very empty. There's not a lot of people around. But as you round the corner to the dance studio, you hear something. You hear a song being sung. And pressed up against the window looking in is a little girl with raven hair, dressed far too warmly for the weather tonight. And that's where we'll leave Doors of Dunera this week. So, huzzah. Yes, okay. Gosh, that was a heavy episode. I'm sorry, everyone. In a good way.
It was wonderful.
Don't apologize.
Okay, so please check out the links that come up in chat now. That includes the Discord. We would love to hear what you think about these wonderful people playing these wonderful characters and what maybe your theories are and everything like that. If you miss out on anything, please head over to YouTube. You can find all the previous episodes, and this one will be uploaded soon. A huge thank you to our wonderful sponsors who we couldn't do this without, in the form of Hero Forge. You would have seen some of our wonderful characters made into minis. They look great. I love them. Also, Maychan Press. As I said, I always yell about Dark Matter because I love Dark Matter. D&D in space. And also, last but certainly not least, the Deck of Many. Which do magic moving spell cards. Humblewood, they do Humblewood and the Deck of Moving Magic spell cards, which are both wonderful things. So until next time, keep evoking emotions, and we'll see you later. Bye.